My name is Rachel, and I am 28 years old, standing in the back of my sister Madison's lavish wedding after a decade of silence between us. 10 years ago, I was labeled the ugly duckling and erased from family photos. Now in my designer dress and successful new life, not a single relative recognizes me. I watch my sister's husband Bradley approach with a champagne flute. He smiles politely, extends his hand and asks, "You know the bride?" I take a slow sip before answering, "More than you think." Before I share my story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, hit that subscribe button, and give this video a like if you have ever felt unrecognized by the people who should know you best. I grew up in a sprawling colonial house in Fairfield, Connecticut, where appearance meant everything. Our lawn was always perfectly manicured, much like my mother Barbara expected her daughters to be. She was a top realtor in the area, known for her immaculate suits and strategic smile. My father Richard ran a moderately successful investment firm, though you would think he was a Wall Street titan from the way he carried himself at country club gatherings. Then there was Madison, my sister, 3 years younger, but light years ahead in our parents' eyes. While I inherited my father's stronger jawline and my grandmother's fuller figure, Madison was blessed with our mother's delicate features and naturally slim build. From the moment she entered middle school, and I began my awkward teenage phase, the comparison became relentless. "Rachel, why can't you manage your hair like Madison's?" Her friends always comment on how pretty it looks, mother would say, while I struggled with frizzy curls that never seemed to behave in Connecticut humidity. My teenage years became a battlefield of insecurities. At 14, metal braces overtook my smile. At 15, acne erupted across my forehead and cheeks, despite expensive dermatologist appointments. At 16, I carried an extra 20 pounds that no amount of mother-enforced dieting seemed to affect. Our family dinners were exercises in humiliation. "Rachel, do you really need a second serving? Look at Madison's portion control," Father would comment, not even looking up from his phone. Meanwhile, Madison would quietly serve herself dessert, without comment from either parent. The summer before my senior year, Mother suggested plastic surgery for my graduation present. "Just a little work on your nose, and maybe some liposuction. Dr. Winters does wonderful work." Sandra Parker's daughter had it done, and now she is dating that boy from the Wellington family. I refused, which only deepened the disappointment in her eyes. My father remained emotionally distant throughout my childhood, appearing only to criticize or dismiss. When I won the state science competition in 10th grade, he merely nodded before returning to praising Madison for making cheerleading squad. "That's where the real networking happens," he explained, as if my academic achievement was merely a quaint distraction. While I excelled in school, particularly in computer science and mathematics, my achievements were treated as expected rather than celebrated. Madison's C+ in biology earned her a shopping spree because she tried her best. My straight-A report cards were met with distracted nods. I found refuge in technology and art, spending hours coding and designing in my room while Madison hosted pool parties in our backyard. I created my first rudimentary app at 16, a program that helped organize study schedules. When I showed it to my parents, my father glanced at it and said, "That's nice, but you should focus on something that might help you be more social." The neighbors reinforced this treatment difference. Mrs. Wilson from across the street always asked about beautiful Madison while barely acknowledging me. At family gatherings, Aunt Patricia would loudly declare how Madison was definitely model material while offering me diet tips I never requested. Through these experiences, my confidence eroded slowly. I began to believe I was fundamentally flawed, that my value was intrinsically less than my sister's. I stopped looking in mirrors, wore baggy clothes to hide my body, and avoided family photographs. My world shrank to academics, and the few friends who saw beyond appearances. Only one person seemed to truly see my potential. Mrs. Lawson, my computer science teacher, recognized my talent for coding and logical thinking. "Rachel, You have a gift, she told me after I debugged a program the rest of the class struggled with. Your mind works in extraordinary ways. Don't let anyone convince you that's not valuable. Those words became a tiny flame I protected, even as the winds of family disapproval threatened to extinguish it. I began quietly applying to colleges with strong computer science programs far away from Connecticut. I started imagining a life where my brain mattered more than my appearance, where I could build something meaningful without constant comparison. Little did I know, the breaking point would come, before I even left for college, on what should have been one of the proudest days of my life. My high school graduation should have marked a turning point, a celebration of achievements and potential. Instead, it became the day my family officially decided I wasn't worth claiming. The ceremony itself was uneventful. I received my diploma, heard my name called without family cheers, and returned to my seat. Afterward, my parents insisted on hosting a graduation party at our home. Not for me, but for appearances. The Millers and Stevensons will expect it, Mother explained, as if my accomplishment was merely a social obligation to fulfill. I spent the morning helping arrange furniture and preparing food, while Madison lounged by the pool with her friends. By afternoon, our backyard filled with parents' business associates, neighbors, and a few distant relatives. I noticed immediately how few of my actual friends were invited, while the guest list brimmed with my parents' social circle. While retrieving more ice from the garage freezer, I overheard my mother talking to Mrs. Calloway, her real estate partner. "Such a shame about Rachel," Mother said, voice dripping with practiced sympathy. "We tried everything, but some girls just don't blossom. Try not to include her in too many photos. I want this album to be something we can display." I froze, ice bucket in hand, as Mrs. Calloway replied, "Barbara, don't be so hard on yourself. Not everyone can be as lucky as Madison. At least Rachel has her academics." They laughed softly before walking back toward the party. I remained motionless, their words crystallizing years of subtle and not-so-subtle messaging. I was the ugly graduate, the daughter they tolerated, rather than celebrated. Later, Madison's friends congregated near the dessert table, where I was replenishing brownies. They didn't notice me standing slightly behind them. "God, can you imagine having Rachel's hair?" one girl snickered. "My mother would die if I left the house looking like that." "At least she tried with the dress," another replied. "Though it does nothing for her figure." "Madison got all the good genes in that family," a third concluded. "Poor Rachel." Madison walked up, heard their comments, and rather than defending me, she laughed along. "Stop it, you guys," she said, without conviction, a smile betraying her feigned protest. When the photographer my parents hired began arranging family photos, Mother positioned me in the back corner, partially hidden behind my father's shoulder. "The lighting hits better this way," she explained, when I questioned the arrangement. I later discovered that in the album she displayed, those photos were cropped to remove me entirely. After the last guest departed, something inside me finally snapped. 20 years of accumulated hurt crystallized into courage as I confronted my family in our too-perfect living room. "Why did you tell people not to take pictures with me?" I asked Mother directly. She looked startled, then composed her realtor smile. "Rachel, don't be dramatic. Today was lovely." "I heard you, Mother. I heard what you said to Mrs. Calloway. I heard Madison's friends, and I saw how Madison laughed along." Father's face darkened. "This is exactly the problem, Rachel. Always making everything about you. Always finding reasons to feel sorry for yourself. When have I ever made anything about me?" My voice rose, despite my efforts to stay calm. "When have any of you acknowledged my existence beyond criticizing it?" "Lower your voice," Mother hissed. "The Petersons might hear." "I don't care." The words exploded from me. "I graduated with honors today. I earned a scholarship. I created my own programs. And all you care about is how I look in your precious photos." Father rose from his armchair, face flushed with anger. I'd rarely seen directed at anyone but me. "You're an embarrassment to this family," he spat. "Always have been." We've given you everything, and you repay us with ingratitude and scenes." Mother joined in her veneer cracking to reveal the contempt beneath. "If you can't make yourself presentable, you don't belong here. We have standards, Rachel. Madison understands that. Why can't you?" I turned to my sister, hoping for a word of support, some recognition of the unfairness. She examined her manicure, saying nothing, her silence a betrayal, more cutting than any insult. I went to my room and packed a single suitcase that night, tears blurring my vision as I selected essentials. Photos, my laptop clothes, the small amount of savings I'd hidden in a programming textbook. I slept fitfully, wondering if I was overreacting, if perhaps in the morning things would resolve. They didn't. Breakfast brought another confrontation when Father noticed my suitcase at the foot of the stairs. "Going somewhere?" he asked coldly. "I can't stay where I'm not wanted," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "Always so dramatic," Mother sighed, not looking up from her coffee. "You have a choice," Rachel, Father stated firmly. "Either accept your place in this family and start making appropriate changes or leave. But if you walk out that door, don't expect our support." The ultimatum hung in the air between us. Madison appeared in the doorway, still in pajamas, watching silently. In that moment, something hardened inside me. "I choose self-respect," I said quietly, picking up my suitcase. Mother's parting words followed me down the driveway. "Don't come back until you're someone we can be proud of." I didn't look back as I walked away from the only home I'd known, though my legs trembled with each step. Reality hit hard that first night, as I sat in my used Honda Civic in a Walmart parking lot, unable to afford a hotel, unsure where to go. I was 18, technically an adult, but utterly unprepared for complete independence. After 3 nights of car sleeping and fast food bathrooms for washing up, I swallowed my pride and called Mrs. Lawson, my computer science teacher. She listened without judgment to my stumbling explanation. "My guest room is yours until you figure things out," she said simply. "And Rachel, they're wrong about you. Remember that." With somewhere to shower and sleep, I could finally think beyond basic survival. As humiliating as that graduation had been, it had also freed me. For the first time, I could define success on my own terms without the constant weight of family disapproval. I had no idea then how complete the transformation would be, or that 10 years later, I would stand unrecognized at my sister's wedding face to face with the family that had once discarded me. With $327 to my name, I moved to Boston 2 weeks after graduation. Mrs. Lawson helped me secure a tiny studio apartment with a roommate named Jade, a nursing student who worked night shifts. Our schedules rarely overlapped, which suited my fragile social confidence just fine. The first year defined exhaustion. I woke at 5 each morning to open at Beacon Street Coffee, where I learned to operate industrial espresso machines and fake cheerfulness for commuters. At 2, I rushed to Stylemark, a clothing boutique in Back Bay, where I folded endless stacks of sweaters until closing. From 9 to midnight, I freelanced basic web design jobs found on internet forums building simple sites for small businesses. Between shifts, I attended community college on a partial scholarship, focusing on computer science. The financial aid office became a second home, as I pieced together grants, loans, and payment plans to cover tuition. I ate ramen 6 nights a week, saving restaurant meals for rare celebrations. When my laptop died, I coded in the school computer lab until security kicked me out at midnight. Despite the grueling schedule, something unexpected happened. I began to thrive. Without my family's constant criticism, I could hear my own thoughts. I discovered my fashion sense leaned toward simple, tailored pieces rather than the frilly styles Mother had pushed. I cut my unruly hair into a practical bob that suited my face shape. I started jogging not to lose weight, but because the rhythm cleared my mind for coding problems. In my second semester, I met people who valued intelligence and creativity. Alicia, a fierce graphic design major, befriended me after a heated class debate about user interface ethics. Sean and Derek, twin programming prodigies, invited me to their weekend hackathons, where I discovered my talent for solving complex algorithmic challenges. Gradually, I built a circle of friends who saw my worth beyond appearance. My breakthrough came during my second year when I secured an internship at TechForward, a small but innovative software company. My supervisor Marcus noticed my ability to spot inefficiencies in existing programs and gave me increasing responsibility. For the first time, my analytical mind became an asset rather than something to hide. "Rachel, the way you restructured that database is brilliant," Marcus told me after I completed a particularly challenging project. "We've been struggling with that for months." His casual praise meant more than any grade I'd ever received. I began to understand that my value didn't depend on fitting a narrow definition of beauty or social success. My contributions were tangible, my skills in demand. While my professional confidence grew emotionally, I remained fragmented. Nightmares about my family's rejection disrupted my sleep. Innocuous comments from coworkers sometimes triggered disproportionate hurt. At Alicia's urging, I finally sought therapy through a sliding scale clinic. Dr. Thompson helped me untangle the complex web of family trauma. "What happened to you wasn't about your appearance," she explained during one session. "It was about control, and your parents' inability to value difference. Their limitations aren't your failure." Those weekly sessions became sacred time for healing. I learned to recognize destructive thought patterns to challenge the internal voice that sounded suspiciously like my mother. I practiced setting boundaries and expressing need skills never modeled in my childhood home. As therapy progressed, my external transformation accelerated, not because I was trying to prove something to my family, but because I was discovering myself. I found that with proper care, my skin cleared, and my hair, when cut appropriately for its texture, fell in flattering waves. Regular jogging toned my body naturally. I developed my own minimalist style, favoring quality basics over trendy items mother would have pushed. 3 years after leaving Connecticut, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in computer science, summa cum laude. No family members attended the ceremony, but my chosen family filled 2 rows, cheering loudly when my name was called. That summer I received an offer from Innovate Tech, a rising software company in San Francisco. The salary was double what I made from my 3 Boston jobs combined. Within 2 weeks, I packed my now considerable belongings into a rental truck and drove cross-country toward a new chapter. San Francisco embraced me. The tech culture valued results over appearances, innovation over tradition. I thrived in the meritocratic environment, rising quickly from junior developer to project lead within 18 months. My specialized algorithm for predictive analytics caught the attention of industry publications. At 25, I was headhunted by 3 major tech companies and chose DataSphere, accepting a 6-figure salary and equity options. I found an apartment in North Beach, with a tiny bay window, and filled it with carefully chosen furniture, creating the first space that felt truly mine. I adopted a rescue cat named Pixel, who greeted me each evening with demanding affection. My circle of friends expanded to include colleagues, neighbors, and members of a weekend hiking group. When I met Michael at an industry conference, I approached dating with the same caution I'd applied to every relationship since leaving home. He was patient with my guarded nature, never pushing for more than I could give. After 6 months, I finally told him about my family, braced for judgment or pity. Instead, he listened intently, then said, "Their loss is immeasurable. Thank you for trusting me with that story." By 26, I had gathered enough industry experience and innovative ideas to launch my own startup with 2 trusted colleagues. Real-time data focused on creating accessible analytics tools for small businesses, a niche market overlooked by larger companies. We secured first-round funding within 3 months, and our client list grew steadily through word of mouth. My professional success translated to financial security beyond what I had imagined possible. I purchased my first home at 27, a Victorian townhouse I renovated to preserve historical details while incorporating modern technology. Each design choice reflected my personal aesthetic rather than someone else's expectations. Though I occasionally searched for my family online, I never reached out. Father's investment firm appeared to be struggling based on industry news. Mother still sold real estate, her profile picture, showing more pronounced lines despite obvious filters. Madison's social media documented a whirlwind romance with Bradley Harrington, heir to a hotel fortune and 10 years her senior. I had built a life entirely my own, independent of their validation or rejection. I had proven myself not to them but to myself. I had survived. I had thrived. Then the embossed wedding invitation arrived, shattering the careful distance I had maintained for a decade. The cream-colored envelope arrived on a Tuesday, mixed among bills and business correspondence. I nearly discarded it until I noticed the Connecticut return address, a street name that immediately transported me back to my childhood neighborhood. My hands trembled slightly as I slid a silver letter opener under the flap. Mr. and Mrs. Richard Wilson request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter, Madison Elizabeth, to Bradley James Harrington. The formal script blurred as unexpected emotions surfaced. After 10 years of silence, after disowning me completely, they had sent a wedding invitation, as if nothing had happened. No apology, no acknowledgement of the past, just an engraved card requesting my presence at the Hartford Grand Plaza Hotel on June 12th. A smaller card fell from the envelope, handwritten in what I recognized as Madison's looping script. Rachel, I know it's been forever. It would mean so much if you could come. Madison. I set the invitation on my kitchen counter and stepped back as if it might detonate. For days, I circled it cautiously, unsure how to respond. During a video call with Dr. Thompson, I held up the invitation to my laptop camera. "What are you feeling right now?" she asked, her familiar therapeutic neutrality comforting. "Confusion, anger, curiosity," I admitted. "Why now? 10 years of nothing, and suddenly I'm supposed to show up and play happy family." "Those are all valid reactions," she replied. "The question is, what would attending this wedding do for you, not for them?" That question followed me through restless nights. I found myself researching Bradley Harrington, discovering his family owned a chain of luxury hotels across New England. His Instagram showcased a life of privilege, the captions hinting at entitled arrogance beneath charitable photo ops. Madison appeared in many pictures, always perfectly styled, but with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. More curious, I leveraged industry connections to discreetly inquire about my father's business. What I discovered was revealing. Wilson Investments had weathered several lawsuits from dissatisfied clients and narrowly avoided bankruptcy the previous year. The timing of this sudden reunion attempt seemed suspiciously aligned with my rising profile in the tech industry. My best friend Alicia visited for dinner that weekend, listening as I processed my conflicted feelings. "They're definitely after your money or connections," she stated bluntly, refilling her wine glass. "The question is, does that matter? You could go just to show them who you've become without their help. Or I could ignore it completely," I countered. "I owe them nothing." Alicia shrugged. "True. But are you curious? Would seeing them provide some closure? You've done the work in therapy, Rachel. You're not the same vulnerable 18-year-old they bullied." Her words resonated. I had changed fundamentally, growing stronger through the very rejection that was meant to diminish me. Perhaps witnessing that transformation might offer resolution to a chapter I had never fully closed. The decision to attend wasn't made in a single moment, but accumulated through small choices. I requested the time off work. I booked a flight to Connecticut. I reserved a hotel room near the venue, but deliberately not at the Harrington-owned property where the wedding would take place. Choosing what to wear became unexpectedly significant. I wanted an outfit that represented who I had become, not who they had expected me to be. After considerable searching, I found a tailored sapphire blue dress from a French designer, elegant, without being showy, complemented by the single piece of fine jewelry. I owned a platinum pendant containing a small diamond, a gift to myself. When my company secured its major funding round, I practiced potential conversations in my bathroom mirror, rehearsing calm responses to possible provocations. Yes, I've been well. Thank you. My company. We specialize in data analytics. No, I haven't had work done, just found what works for me. Each practice line a shield against anticipated barbs. The weekend before the wedding, I reviewed the venue online, memorizing floor plans of the Hartford Grand Plaza Hotel to ensure I could navigate confidently through unfamiliar territory. Knowledge had always been my power, preparation, my comfort. The flight from San Francisco to Hartford took nearly 6 hours, during which I alternated between working on my laptop and practicing mindfulness techniques Dr. Thompson had taught me. By the time the plane touched down in Connecticut, I had achieved a tentative calm. The familiar East Coast humidity hit me as I exited the airport, a sensory reminder of the place I had once called home. My rental car, a subtle luxury model, carried me through neighborhoods that held fragments of memories at every turn. The hotel I had chosen was modest but elegant, providing a neutral territory to retreat to if the wedding became overwhelming. That evening, while organizing my things for the next day, my phone chimed with a text message from an unfamiliar number. "Are you really coming, Madison?" I stared at the screen, considering various responses before deciding on silence. After a decade without contact, I wasn't obligated to confirm my attendance. Let my presence or absence speak for itself. As I prepared for bed in my quiet hotel room, I realized that regardless of how tomorrow unfolded, I was returning to Connecticut as a visitor, not as the desperate teenager who had fled. This was no longer home, and that knowledge brought unexpected freedom. I was choosing to attend this wedding not from obligation or need for approval, but from a position of hard-won strength. The girl who had left in tears no longer existed. The woman who would arrive tomorrow had nothing to prove and nothing to fear. The June morning dawned, clear and warm sunlight filtering through my hotel room curtains. I took my time preparing, treating each step of my routine as a form of armor. My makeup was polished but subtle, enhancing rather than masking. My hair, now falling in controlled waves to my shoulders, cooperated with minimal styling. When I finally slipped into the sapphire dress the mirror reflected someone I recognized and respected, a far cry from the uncertain girl who once avoided reflective surfaces. I arrived at the Hartford Grand Plaza Hotel 30 minutes before the ceremony timing, calculated to avoid prolonged pre-wedding mingling, while ensuring I wouldn't disrupt the proceedings by arriving late. The venue's gardens had been transformed into an elaborate ceremony space. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, an abundance of roses and peonies creating a fragrant canopy. I selected a seat midway back, not hiding, but not drawing attention either. As guests filtered in, I observed my father greeting business associates near the entrance. His once dark hair, now significantly grayed, his posture slightly stooped. He walked past my row without a glance, clearly not recognizing me. Mother appeared minutes later, her face showing the strain of maintaining appearances despite evident financial struggles. Her designer dress was from several seasons ago, her jewelry more modest than the statement pieces she once favored. She surveyed the gathering with practiced hostess eyes, gaze sliding past me without recognition. The ceremony itself was predictably lavish, though I noticed subtle signs of compromise. The string quartet played only during key moments, rather than throughout. The flower arrangements, while beautiful, were less abundant than would befit a true Harrington wedding, small indicators that perhaps Bradley's family wasn't fully funding this display. Madison appeared in a traditional gown that Mother had undoubtedly selected, looking beautiful but tense. As she recited her vows, I detected a tremor in her voice that guests might attribute to emotion, but that I recognized as uncertainty. Bradley, tall and conventionally handsome, spoke his vows with practiced charm that didn't quite reach his eyes. His hand on Madison's wrist seemed more possessive than affectionate. During the cocktail hour that followed, I maintained strategic distance, observing familiar faces from the periphery. Aunt Patricia, who once suggested I consider corrective procedures for my jawline, now boasted about her son's mediocre accomplishments to anyone who would listen. Uncle Robert, father's brother, who had always treated me with distant politeness, appeared to be avoiding my father, suggesting family tensions beyond my absence. The Wilson investment situation is worse than they're admitting, I overheard one of father's golf club associates murmuring to another behind a decorative shrub. Barbara's commissions are the only thing keeping them afloat. And this wedding, his companion replied. Harrington money. Some, but not what Richard hoped. Bradley's father keeps tight control of the purse strings. Richard's counting on connections from this marriage more than immediate cash. Their conversation shifted as a waiter approached, but I had heard enough to confirm my suspicions. This reconciliation attempt coincided too neatly with financial desperation. As guests moved toward the reception hall, I encountered my first direct interaction. Aunt Sylvia, mother's oldest sister, who had always been slightly kinder than the rest, approached me with polite curiosity. "I don't believe we've met," she said, extending her hand. "Are you from the Harrington side?" "Not exactly," I replied, accepting her handshake. "I'm an old friend of the family." She nodded, making conversation about the beautiful ceremony, before drifting away, never suspecting she had just spoken to her disowned niece. The non-recognition was both amusing and sobering, a testament to how completely they had erased me from family consciousness. The reception space dazzled with crystal chandeliers and elaborate table settings, though I again noted small compromises in the details. I heard Mother near the entrance, instructing the coordinator about seating arrangements, emphasizing that the investors and Bradley's family connections must have the premium tables. I selected a seat at table 11, positioned where I could observe the family table, without being immediately visible to them. I was joined by distant Harrington relatives, and a couple who introduced themselves as Bradley's parents' neighbors, none of whom had any reason to recognize me. After the bridal party's entrance and initial toasts, dinner service began. The conversation at my table remained pleasantly impersonal, allowing me to observe the dynamics at play throughout the room. Madison barely touched her food, while Bradley had already emptied multiple champagne flutes. Mother worked the room with determined networking energy, while father engaged in intense conversation with an older man, I recognized as a prominent local investor. Midway through the main course, Bradley excused himself from the head table and began circulating among guests. His path eventually brought him to table 11, where he greeted his extended family members with practiced charm before turning to me. "I don't believe we've had the pleasure," he said, his smile not quite masking the calculation in his eyes. "Bradley Harrington." "Rachel," I replied, simply offering my hand. "And how do you know the family?" he inquired, his tone suggesting this was information he should already possess. "I go back quite a ways with the Wilsons," I answered truthfully. His eyes narrowed slightly at my vague response. Madison sighed. Then, odd, "She's never mentioned a Rachel. What was your last name again?" "Wilson. Actually," I said, watching confusion cross his features. "You're related. A cousin, perhaps." He seemed genuinely perplexed. "You could say we're very closely related," I replied, maintaining eye contact. Bradley's expression shifted from confusion to slight annoyance at not immediately placing me. "You know my wife?" he asked directly. It was the moment I had rehearsed countless times, the pivot point of my decision to attend. "More than you think," I said evenly. His brow furrowed as he processed my response, the implications slowly registering. "Wait, are you suggesting?" His voice trailed off as understanding dawned. "You can't be the sister. Rachel is." He stopped, clearly about to repeat something unflattering he'd been told. "Unrecognizable," I supplied. "Yes, it seems that way." Bradley's face cycled through shocked disbelief, and finally calculation as he reassessed me through this new lens. "Madison said you weren't coming, that you hadn't spoken in years." "Both true. Until today," I confirmed. Without another word, he turned abruptly and made his way directly to the head table, bending to whisper urgently in Madison's ear. Her head snapped up, eyes scanning the room until they locked with mine. Even across the distance, I could see the color drain from her face as she registered, who was sitting at table 11. Within moments, my parents were also looking in my direction. Mother's expression morphing from confusion to a strange mixture of shock and immediate social calculation. Father appeared frozen, his perpetual disapproval momentarily replaced by disbelief. Bradley beckoned to them, and as a unit they made their way toward my table. Guests noticed the unusual procession conversations, quieting as attention shifted to the unfolding drama. I remained seated outwardly calm despite my racing heart. Rachel Madison reached the table first, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is it really you?" "Hello, Madison," I replied simply. "Congratulations on your wedding." Mother pushed forward, her realtor smile snapping into place with practiced ease. "My darling daughter, what a wonderful surprise." She moved as if to embrace me, performance already in full swing for the watching guests. I stood, but maintained enough distance to prevent the insincere hug. "Mother. Father. It's been a long time." Father nodded stiffly, eyes rapidly cataloging my appearance, clothing, and demeanor, visibly recalculating my value to the family based on these external markers of success. The surrounding tables had gone silent, guests openly watching the reunion. Mother, ever conscious of appearances, laughed artificially. "Well, this calls for a proper celebration. Bradley, darling. Make sure the photographer captures this wonderful family moment." As Bradley moved to comply, I found myself momentarily alone with Madison. Up close, I could see the fine lines of stress around her eyes, expertly concealed by makeup, but visible to someone who knew what to look for. "You look beautiful," I told her quietly, but not particularly happy. Her practiced smile faltered for just an instant. "It's my wedding day," she responded, as if that answered everything. "Yes," I agreed, "it certainly is." Mother wasted no time pulling me aside to a quiet corner of the reception hall, her fingers digging into my arm with familiar pressure. Her eyes scanned my appearance with new intensity, noting the quality of my dress, the subtle elegance of my single piece of fine jewelry. "What a transformation," she remarked, voice honeyed but eyes sharp. "You look almost presentable now. Who would have thought you had it in you?" 10 years can change a person," I replied neutrally. Clearly she agreed, gaze calculating. "You must tell me everything. What are you doing now? Where are you living?" Before I could respond, Father appeared beside us, his initial shock now contained behind his businessman facade. "Rachel," he acknowledged, offering a stiff handshake, as if we were concluding a business meeting rather than reuniting after a decade. "Your mother and I were just discussing you recently." "Were you?" I kept my tone, even knowing the claim was almost certainly false. "Of course," he continued smoothly. "I've seen your name mentioned in some technology publications. Data analytics, is it? Your own company?" I nodded, noting how quickly his interest had been piqued once he realized I had achieved success without his assistance or connections. "Real-time data. We specialize in accessible analytics tools for small to mid-sized businesses." His eyebrows rose slightly. "Impressive. Very impressive. We should catch up properly. Perhaps you could stop by the house tomorrow for brunch." The invitation was transparently self-serving, but before I could respond, we were interrupted by a steady stream of suddenly curious relatives. Aunt Patricia approached with exaggerated warmth, examining me as if I were a curiosity in a museum. "Rachel, we've missed you at family gatherings," she lied effortlessly. "You look so different. Have you had work done?" "Just found what works for me," I replied, echoing the response I had practiced. Uncle Robert followed, then cousins, who had barely acknowledged my existence during childhood, each suddenly eager to reconnect now that I appeared successful. Their transparent interest might have hurt the 18-year-old Rachel. To my current self, it was merely confirmation of their shallow values. Bradley's parents approached with newfound respect. After learning of my company's success, Mr. Harrington immediately inquiring about potential business applications for their hotel chain. Mother hovered nearby, clearly pleased by this development, her earlier rejection conveniently forgotten in light of advantageous connections. During a momentary lull in the parade of false reunions, I excused myself to the restroom, needing a brief respite. As I refreshed my lipstick, the door swung open to reveal Madison's eyes reddened despite careful makeup retouching. "Why did you come?" she asked, voice breaking slightly. "To show us all up, to ruin my day." "I came because you invited me," I answered simply. "Why did you invite me, Madison?" She looked away, examining her manicured nails. I don't know what I thought. "Are you happy?" I asked directly. "With Bradley, with all of this?" Her carefully constructed composure cracked, tears welling, despite her evident effort to contain them. "He's from a good family. Everyone says we're perfect together." "That's not what I asked." Madison's shoulders slumped slightly. "It's complicated. His family has expectations. Our parents have expectations. This marriage, makes sense for everyone. Except, possibly you," I observed quietly. She didn't deny it, which told me everything I needed to know. Our conversation was interrupted by Mother entering the restroom, her radar for potentially damaging private conversations still finely tuned. "There you are. Everyone's asking about you, Rachel. And Bradley's father wants to discuss potential technology applications for their properties." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Your father could use some introductions to investors as well. His business has faced some temporary challenges." "I'm not here to provide investment connections," I stated firmly. Mother's pleasant facade slipped momentarily. "After all we've done for you, the least you could do is help your father through a difficult period." The audacity of her statement left me momentarily speechless. "All you've done for me, I finally managed." Like telling guests not to photograph the ugly graduate. Like suggesting plastic surgery as a graduation gift. Like editing me out of family photos. "You're being dramatic again," she dismissed with a wave of her hand. "Ancient history. Look how well you turned out despite your attitude." "No," I corrected her. "Look how well I turned out because I left. Because I built something without your constant criticism and impossible standards." Mother's expression hardened. "I see success hasn't improved your personality. Pity." As she turned to leave, I found myself unexpectedly addressing Madison. "You deserve happiness, not just arrangements that make sense for everyone else." Back in the reception hall, I found Father engaged in conversation with several men I recognized from local business circles. He beckoned me over with transparent eagerness. "Gentlemen, my daughter Rachel, the tech entrepreneur I was mentioning," he introduced, claiming connection to my success, as if he had personally mentored me. I greeted them politely, but firmly corrected the narrative. My company was built independently. I left Connecticut 10 years ago, and haven't had family support during that time. Father's smile tightened as his associates registered the implicit criticism. "Rachel has always been independent," he attempted to recover. "Gets that drive from me, of course." Before the conversation could continue, I excused myself, no longer willing to participate in his revisionist storytelling. As I moved through the reception, I encountered my grandmother, now in her 80s, seated quietly at a corner table. "I always wondered what happened to you," she said softly as I greeted her. "Barbara and Richard would never discuss it, but I knew something wasn't right. You look well, dear. Strong." "I am strong," I confirmed, touched by her genuine warmth after so much fakery. "Good," she nodded approvingly. "Some plants thrive better away from shade." Later, during the dance portion of the reception, I found myself approached by Emma, Madison's college roommate, whom I had met briefly during their freshman year, before my family disconnection was complete. "They talk about you sometimes, you know," she confided after preliminary catching up. "Your mother pretends you're studying abroad, or something equally vague. Your father changes the subject completely. Madison is the only one who seemed genuinely sad about whatever happened." "Interesting revision of history," I commented. "From what Madison told me years ago, after too many margaritas, They essentially kicked you out for not fitting their image requirements, Emma continued. Pretty messed up family dynamics. That's an accurate summary, I acknowledged. She glanced toward Bradley, who was holding court with his groomsmen, clearly intoxicated. Madison's repeating patterns, you know. Trading authenticity for approval. That guy checks all the right boxes on paper, but he treats her like an acquisition, not a partner. Her assessment aligned with my own observations throughout the day. Bradley's interactions with Madison showed possession rather than partnership, control rather than collaboration. As the evening progressed, more family members and old acquaintances approached each interaction, revealing how superficial their values remained. Mrs. Wilson from across the street expressed astonishment at my glow-up her terminology, betraying her shallow perspective. Several of Madison's former friends, now married with children, examined me with barely concealed envy, clearly reassessing their teenage mockery in light of my evident success. During the traditional toasts, Bradley's best man called for the sister of the bride to offer a few words, likely at Bradley's prompting given his smirk. Caught by surprise, I nevertheless rose and took the microphone, feeling hundreds of curious eyes upon me. Madison and I grew up in the same house, but walked very different paths. I began carefully. Distance and time have separated us, but family connections have a way of enduring whether we maintain them or not. My wish for Madison is that she finds what I eventually discovered, that true fulfillment comes from being valued for who you authentically are, not for who others expect you to be. To the bride and groom. My deliberately ambiguous toast generated uncertain applause, but accomplished what I intended, offering Madison a message within the expected ritual. Her eyes met mine briefly across the room, a flicker of understanding passing between us. As the reception continued, Mother attempted to introduce me to various eligible men in attendance, her matchmaking instincts apparently undiminished by our estrangement. Jonathan is a neurosurgeon, she whispered, nodding toward a balding man in his 40s. Very well established. I'm already in a relationship, I informed her, for nearly 3 years now. This information visibly startled her. You never mentioned that. What does he do? Where did you meet him? Michael is a software architect. We met at an industry conference. He's brilliant, kind, and appreciates me exactly as I am. Her expression suggested she was mentally cataloging his potential value to the family, a calculation I found both predictable and irrelevant. When the photographer gathered family members for formal portraits, I established clear boundaries despite Mother's attempts to orchestrate perfect images. I'll participate in a limited number of photos, I stated firmly, but I won't be positioned in the back or cropped out afterward. Father began to object but quieted when several guests glanced our way, his concern for appearances working in my favor for once. The resulting photographs would show a family reunited on the surface, while those of us within the frame knew the truth of our fractured connections. Throughout the evening, I watched realization dawn across countless faces as my identity became known. The transformation from discarded daughter to successful professional forced a collective reassessment, not of their values, but of their miscalculation in dismissing me so completely. It was a hollow victory, revealing the conditional nature of their acceptance. They hadn't changed, only their perception of my value had shifted. In that recognition came the final piece of my healing understanding that their approval had never been worth seeking in the first place. The morning after the wedding, Madison texted, asking to meet for breakfast at a quiet cafe near my hotel. I agreed, curious about what she might say, without our parents' hovering presence and Bradley's watchful gaze. She arrived looking considerably less polished than the bride of yesterday, dark circles barely concealed beneath designer sunglasses. We ordered coffee in awkward silence before she finally spoke. You look good, Rachel. Really good. Not just your appearance, but confident. Thank you, I replied, uncertain where this conversation was heading. Madison fidgeted with her new wedding ring, twisting it nervously. I should have defended you back then, when they were saying all those horrible things when they threw you out. I just sat there and let it happen. The admission surprised me. Why didn't you? Fear, she admitted quietly. I was always afraid of becoming their next target. If I wasn't perfect, if I didn't meet every expectation, I thought they might turn on me too. So I became exactly what they wanted, never questioning, never rebelling. And now, I asked gently. Now, I'm trapped in the life they designed, she whispered, voice breaking slightly. Bradley looks great on paper. Prestigious family, right connections, impressive credentials. But he's controlling, jealous. Last month he checked my phone while I was showering, accused me of inappropriate texting with a male colleague. It was about a work project, but he wouldn't believe me. The revelation confirmed my observations of their dynamics at the wedding. That's not a healthy relationship, Madison. I know, she acknowledged, looking down at her coffee. But what options do I have? I never built anything for myself like you did. I have no career, no savings of my own. Everything is tied to Bradley or our parents. You always have options, I told her. They might be difficult ones, but they exist. We talked for nearly 2 hours, years of separation dissolving, as she shared the reality behind her seemingly perfect life. The parents who had once favored her now micromanaged every aspect of her existence. Bradley's family treated her as an appropriate accessory to their son, rather than a person in her own right. Her friends were society connections, rather than genuine supports. How did you do it? She asked eventually. How did you walk away and build something so completely your own? One day at a time, I answered honestly. It wasn't easy. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. But gradually, I discovered who I was, without their definitions and limitations. That freedom was worth every struggle. As our conversation drew to a close, Madison asked hesitantly, would it be okay if I called you sometimes, just to talk? I'd like that, I told her, surprising myself with the sincerity of my response. Before leaving Connecticut, I made one decision regarding our parents. I would not cut them off completely as they had done to me, but I would establish clear boundaries about our future relationship. I sent a brief email outlining my terms. I would maintain occasional contact if they respected my autonomy, and refrained from criticism or attempts to leverage my success for their benefit. The ball was in their court. The flight back to San Francisco gave me time to process the wedding experience. What had begun as a confrontation, a chance to show them who I had become without their support, had transformed into something unexpected. I had discovered that their approval or disapproval no longer held power over me. The validation I had once desperately sought from them seemed insignificant compared to the life I had built on my own terms. Michael met me at the airport, his genuine smile, a stark contrast to the calculated expressions I had navigated all weekend. As we drove home, I shared the details of the confrontation and its aftermath. Are you okay? He asked, perceptive as always. Better than okay, I realized. I think I finally found closure. In my next session with Dr. Thompson, we unpacked the complex emotions the wedding had stirred. You faced your deepest rejection and found it couldn't hurt you anymore, she observed. That's tremendous growth. I realized something important, I told her. All these years, part of me was still trying to prove them wrong, to show them I could succeed, despite their rejection. But standing there in that reception hall, watching them suddenly value me, because of external markers of success, I understood that their validation was never worth seeking. It was always conditional, always superficial. That's a powerful insight, she agreed. How does it change things for you moving forward? I don't need to prove anything to anyone but myself, I said slowly. Their approval or disapproval is irrelevant to my worth. I get to define success on my own terms. In the weeks that followed, Madison and I exchanged occasional texts, cautiously rebuilding a connection that had been severed a decade earlier. She shared small acts of independence, opening her own bank account, applying for a part-time position at an art gallery, seeking recommendations for therapists, each step small but significant. Mother sent a stiffly worded email acknowledging my accomplishments and suggesting a family dinner during their next visit to California. Father forwarded information about his business with thinly veiled hints about potential collaboration. Both messages revealed they remained unchanged at their core, still viewing relationships through the lens of utility and appearance. I responded politely, but maintained my boundaries, unwilling to re-enter toxic patterns for the sake of superficial reconciliation. True healing could only come through honest acknowledgement and genuine change, not convenient revisionism, when my status suddenly offered them benefits. The most profound change wasn't in my family relationships, but in my relationship with myself. The lingering question that had haunted me since that graduation day confrontation was finally answered. Mother had told me, "Don't come back until you're someone we can be proud of." I had become someone I was proud of, someone who defined success by integrity, authenticity, and compassion, rather than appearance or social standing. The ugly duckling narrative they had imposed was always their limitation, not mine. Beauty exists in many forms beyond narrow conventional standards. Intelligence, creativity, resilience, kindness, all these qualities shape a person's true value. I had not transformed into someone worthy of love. I had always been worthy despite their inability to see it. Family legacy is complex, carrying both gifts and wounds through generations. My parents had inherited their own limiting beliefs about worth and success, then passed those distortions to their daughters. Madison perpetuated the cycle by seeking validation through conformity. I broke the pattern by walking away, by refusing to accept their definition of my value. True belonging doesn't come from changing yourself to fit external expectations. It comes from finding people who recognize and celebrate your authentic self. My chosen family friends, colleagues, Michael, had shown me what unconditional support actually looks like. They had seen my worth when I was still learning to see it myself. The journey from rejection to self-acceptance wasn't completed in a single dramatic confrontation at a wedding. It unfolded across thousands of ordinary days, through small choices, to trust my judgment, to honor my needs, to define success on my own terms. The wedding was merely one milestone on that longer path. As I look toward the future, I no longer carry the weight of proving my worth to those who could not see it. Instead, I focus on creating a life aligned with my values, on supporting Madison if she chooses a different path, on maintaining appropriate boundaries with parents who may never fully change their perspective. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is permission to walk away from those who cannot love us as we deserve to be loved. The hardest lesson I learned wasn't about my family's rejection, but about accepting that their approval was never the validation I truly needed. Have you ever had to walk away from people who couldn't accept you for who you truly are? How did you find the strength to build your own path? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you. Subscribe to hear more stories of personal transformation, and share with someone who might need to be reminded of their inherent worth today. Remember, sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you courage on yours.